Daniel Craig here.
James Bond turned up to the Aston Martin launch. That's how you know it was a good one. James Bond in F1? Sick! The brand new 2021 Aston Martin has been revealed and it looks like an absolute beauty. I really dig it. It's got some watermelon vibes with it because they've got the slightly pink accents from BWT still being sponsored. The team announced that BWT obviously weren't the title sponsors anymore, but then they actually announced later on, I think a few weeks ago, that they are actually still a big partner of the team, and so that's reflected, I think, in the little accents on the front wing, and very much kind of Mercedes Petronas vibes of the little swoosh that goes all the way on the side of the car. But I really like it. It brings it together. Could have maybe done with a little bit of the Aston Martin lime green as well to kind of get in there. That would have been a nice detail, but maybe in time, evolution of this livery might come about in future seasons. Of course, this is the very first time we're seeing an Aston Martin livery in Formula 1 for, I think, what was it they were saying, like 61 years or 60 years? It's been a long time. But as they said, having Aston Martin as a brand, I said this before, Aston Martin is just a cool car brand. Obviously, it's associated with 007, James Bond, but it's just a cool brand. Their cars are very slick. It's got that air of arrogance, a bit of ego about it, just suave, pure Britishness in a way. And to have it back on the grid in Formula 1 is absolutely awesome. And obviously, this car is going to be piloted by Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll. But the car itself, let's talk about it. Yeah, I mean, a little bit simpler than I was maybe expecting. I thought there might be a big shouty Aston Martin kind of wing logo somewhere on the engine cover, but they've just gone for a bit more simple, kind of spluttered with the sponsors. But, from the side-on profile and the angled ones, I think it just looks very neat and tidy, very Aston Martin, really. And this is only the studio shots. Generally, especially with these kind of colours on cars, they get even better in person, on track, with actual sunlight or, night sky for Singapore and whatnot. So I think this car is going to look like an absolute peach out on circuit. I'm not too sure, obviously so far we've seen the Alfa Romeo was a very gorgeous car. We thought the Alpine car, or at least I thought it was very nice. The Aston, I think, is going to go up there. I think those three cars for me, at the moment, are in the top three realm. Aston Martin, I feel like just because of my bias of that I like Aston Martin as a brand so much, it's getting right up there. But yeah, just very, it's just sick to have the Aston Martin green on the grid and to actually see the car finally in the flesh and see Seb in the Aston Martin colours. Obviously, Stroll's returning, but the big name is Sebastian Vettel, moving from Ferrari to Aston Martin. Smiling, beaming, looking reinvigorated. I really hope that it's not just, the initial thing. I hope it's going to be a case, like when he moved to Ferrari at the very start of his Ferrari career, that it is an actual reinvigoration, that he'll be back to probably not his best. Let's all be honest. Even Seb fans, I think, will agree. I don't think we'll see him ever get back to his true best that we saw at Red Bull in the starting years of Ferrari. But maybe it could be proven wrong. But I feel like he'll at least maybe have a chance to get, somewhat close and kind of, at least 80% of the way there, which will still be a great thing to see for the sport in terms of that midfield fight between Aston Martin, McLaren, Alpine, and obviously they're all trying to bridge the gap to the top cars, obviously, of Red Bull and Mercedes. The actual car itself, we've got some really great detailed shots. Obviously, as is the case for a lot of the cars, it's a massive carryover from last year, and so therefore this Aston Martin car still very much looks along the same lines, or like the cousin of a Mercedes car from 2019, 2020, because obviously last year's Racing Point was basically like a kind of carbon copy, a copy of the 2019 Mercedes, and then they've just evolved it for this year's regulation, so it still retains that Mercedes-esque nose. The entire car has to obviously retain that entire characteristic, but there have been some key changes to the side of this car, the way the engine cover is, and I think they've gone quite aggressive with what they've done. It seems like they spent their tokens on redoing the structure, the crash structure of the actual side pod itself, because they've moved back to a higher configuration for the side pod inlet. I think they Racing Point actually had that higher inlet before in 2019. Then when they copied the Mercedes car, they moved to a lower inlet style for 2020, but subsequently Mercedes actually went the other way. Mercedes went to a higher inlet to try and copy off what Ferrari and Red Bull were doing. So now Aston Martin, for this year, they've kind of gone back to what they were doing themselves in 2019, and essentially what Merc and the top teams and Ferrari have been doing for the last 2 seasons now, which is a bit of a higher inlet base. It gives you more space, more undercut underneath that intake to try and scoot air through round the side pod to the rear end of the car, and gives you a bit more real estate essentially there in that very crucial barge area as well. But it looks like they've also then worked that in for the rest of the bodywork. It looks so suckered in. And it's got very much, and it's obviously a little bit to joke about again, that it's kind of similar along the lines of Mercedes, but it's a similar sort of thing of suckering in that engine cover so much to the point where they've got these little kind of bullet bumps on the engine cover, because that's where the engine parts are housed, and so literally they're kind of vacuum sealing the engine cover around the engine on that part of the engine cover on the side as well. Last year, I think we can all agree, I think the Racing Point team didn't really truly get to where their potential was. Racing Point, Force India, that team, that outlet, has always been good of making the most with what they've got, the kind of lower budget, lower resources, and punching above their weight. Whereas last year, they obviously at times they looked really good, but I think from where we all thought the potential, I think clearly where at times, the lap time showed it. That car was so quick sometimes when it got in that window. It was just as quick as the Red Bull and Mercs at times. It's just a case of this season they'll be wanting to actually fully extract the potential of this car. I think last year they didn't make the most of it. Really, they should have beaten McLaren and Renault, well. I think they should have beaten them for sure. So this season, I think they're aiming high. Obviously, with Seb coming to the team, that's going to be a given. He's a race winner. He's, hungry. He wouldn't be staying in the sport, going to this team if he didn't think maybe there might be a chance of getting up to scoring podiums, getting to eventually scoring wins. As he said on the live stream, maybe not straight away, but it's a long-term kind of thing, and it's possible with this team. The way they're going, the trajectory they've showed in terms of the last 2 years, and then especially in terms of now this injection of this freshness of Aston Martin, resources you probably know from Lawrence Stroll. I'm sure there's going to be additions to the factory and things like that, and just hiring personnel maybe that maybe Racing Point couldn't do before. But then at the same time, you've got that budget cap coming in. And I said this before in kind of predicting the season and looking to, across the teams. Out of all of them, I think a team like Aston Martin was Racing Point. The way they set up before, and they continue to, because they've said that they won't, it's not going to be a case of Aston Martin have come in and now they can just blow a big budget. They're still going to operate on that tight budget and make sure they're still actually, keeping afloat and keeping smart with their money. But it means that when the cost cap comes in, I think out of all the teams, they're one of the best teams to adapt to that and work really well in that kind of budget zone, essentially, compared to the other teams like Ferrari, Red Bull, Merc will all have to cut budgets. Even McLaren, even Renault or Alpine will have to cut budgets, because those are all kind of factory-based teams, or McLaren is a very big team in its own right, obviously with the history it's got, so it definitely also needs to bring down. Whereas I feel like Aston Martin, they're already kind of there. They're already operating in that kind of window and realm. So it's a really good long-term thing to look at this team. But for next season, for this season, I should say, 2021, I mean, as I said, it's just about extracting what they maybe should have done last year and continuing that development. But it seems like what we've seen from the side pod area and what they appear to have spent their tokens on for this year in terms of development and what they can actually change of the chassis and the proper foundation of the car. Obviously, aero is free reign for every team, but foundationally, what they've changed of the car is aggressive. They've gone aggressive with that side pod change and that kind of suckering in. And I think added in to just the usual development. And I think now with Aston Martin there, maybe there's scope to bring more updates a bit quicker as well. And then you've got just the brain that is Sebastian Vettel. I'm sure he's a master at debriefing feedback. He's always seemed like such a clever driver in terms of giving feedback and debrief. So that will be elevating them in terms of the amount of info they have to make further upgrades. So it's exciting times. And they themselves have said it. They're going aggressive. They want to really take the fight to it. And it's just very, very exciting. And the actual car itself just adds in looking lovely. I've seen a few people say they're a bit underwhelmed, or maybe they're expecting a bit more of a fancier livery maybe, which I guess I can agree with. I maybe thought, like I said, they'd have maybe a big, massive Aston Martin half wing across somewhere, and maybe some lime green as well to kind of match their Aston Martin racing, like GT3 driving and whatnot. But I still think it's got like a elegant, simple slickness to it that I expected from Aston Martin. And like I said, this is a foundation livery that you know that in the years to come now, just like Merc have done, just like, you know, Ferrari and Red Bull, oh, not really Red Bull, not really Ferrari, McLaren, Renault, you know, there's going to be evolutions of this livery now into future years. So as a baseline for Aston Martin in F1, it's a great foundation. I mean, I'm not going to lie, just, as I said, I've let my bias out. I love Aston Martin as a car brand. They've always been sick. I, growing up, loved James Bond films. So as a brand, as a team, it's sick to see them, and I just can't wait to see that car out on track. And as I've said, I do like Sebastian Vettel as a driver, as a person. I want to see him do well. I really hated seeing how he was in the Ferrari last year, so I really hope this can be a rejig year. But what do you guys make of the car, the livery? Do you guys reckon Aston Martin have what it takes to continue what Racing Point were doing last year and better that? As I said, do you think they'll be fine to be able to extract the full potential of such a good car that they clearly have made, as it is basically, you know, foundationally a copy of that Mercedes 2019 car, which is still a great car, obviously stacked up against some of the midfield runners, and they've continued to develop it. Do you reckon they'll be able to find that potential? And obviously, Sebastian Vettel fans out there, do you think he'll be reinvigorated? Because I'm sure also Seb doubters will say, no, not at all. It's going to be very interesting to see in the first few races and pre-season to see how that car works. Obviously, I know it's hard to tell at pre-season between testing times, but it's still going to be exciting to see how it looks, because we did see in pre-season last year how good that Racing Point was looking, and then it did actually end up being that good at points this season. So it's going to be really very highly anticipated. That fight between Aston Martin, McLaren, and Alpine is going to be kind of very, very interesting. Maybe Ferrari gets stuck in as well. They've improved. But then I'm just really wanting to see, hopefully, if Aston, you know, McLaren, Alpine, you know, can any of them start to bridge the gap even more? Because at the end of last season, McLaren Racing Point, they were getting quite close, actually, at times in qualifying to Red Bull and Merc at times. I think McLaren especially, I think they only finished like 2/10 behind Red Bull, was it, at Abu Dhabi, which is quite surprising. And obviously, like I said, Racing Point yo-yoed a bit. So that's the big thing for Aston. I think this season, that's the big thing they need to solve. They need to stop that yo-yoing, and they need to be consistently just there. Whereas there was a few times where they just weren't really fully on the pace, or operationally they made a few mistakes. I think I remember Spa, they really didn't, you know, made the wrong decisions with Perez in terms of the strategy. So they need to iron out that kind of stuff. But if they can do that, I think it can be, a very, very sick season for Aston Martin. But I think you can tell just by the way I am, I'm sounding a bit giddy, because it's sick. I really like this launch. Also, the actual launch itself. Let's talk about that briefly before I end the video. Mega. Best one they've done so far. The F1 teams, that's how you do a reveal for your new car, your new team. Make a sick video. They got Dave involved to do a kind of a voiceover, which was awesome. The video itself, beautifully put together. That's how you build hype to your new team, to your new livery, to your new launch for the new season. So take note, other F1 teams, because that was really quite poetic and beautiful. Really built the hype. I liked it. And obviously, like I said, also surprised to see James Bond involved. They actually got Daniel Craig on the stream, which was sick. So yeah, that's the Aston Martin launch. Let me know what you make of it in the comments below. If you're new around here, do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.